All right, good evening, everyone. Yo! All right. Thank you very, very much. Before I begin, I would like to actually start by thanking my mother as well. Unfortunately, my mom couldn't make it, but she will be watching it. So why don't we all say hi, Mom? Hi, Mom! Love you. You know, my mother is actually the most strongest and successful person that I know today. And I say that because she succeeded in bringing up a family of 5, almost all on her own. And my mom was definitely one that is not afraid to risk. And I say this because when I was 4 years old, we were actually living in Mexico. I was born in Mexico. But at the age of 4, my mother took on the decision to basically, in search for a better upbringing for all of us, she decided that we should move to the United States. So when I was 4 years old, we actually crossed the border illegally, right? As you can imagine it. Actually, with my sister, Sandra. Sandra's here. Hi, Sandra. Sorry, I'm going to say this story. Sandra was with us that day. It was myself. I shouldn't say myself first. My mom, Sandra, and myself. And we actually crossed the border. It was my mother's idea because she believed that, you know, if we moved to the United States, we would be better. And, you know, our mothers always do that. And our fathers, of course, right? Except that my mother and my father separated when I was 4. So my mom said, well, you know what? I'm going to do things on my own. And that's the decision she took. So talk about risk, right? She took us all. It was somewhat impactful for me, probably more for Sandra, because she was older. She remembers it better than I do. However, I do remember growing up in California, in Los Angeles to be specific, wasn't as easy. You know, not speaking the language, being in school, kind of intimidating, right? Not speaking the language, people looking at you a little bit different. So that was a bit frustrating for me. And as I grew, that frustration kind of intensified a little bit. One of the things I definitely got very frustrated about was not being able to work, right? Because you can't work. Not being able to go to school, because unless you had a lot of money, you had to go to a private school. So I couldn't work, I couldn't go to school. So that was a little frustrating. Having to sit back and watch my mom and my sisters and brothers bring us all up and do their best that they could was kind of frustrating because I really couldn't do anything about it. And there's a particular event that happened which was what created everything. And that's basically the reason why I'm here, the reason why I started Success is the Movement. It was because of this particular event, and I was 12 years old when it happened. I'll share it with you. My mom would always take us somewhere nice to eat or to the movies every Sunday, every weekend. So I remember it must have been like a Sunday or Saturday. We were going to the movies, so we were walking down the shopping mall, and the particular movies were on the other side, so you kind of have to go through the shops. So we're walking by the shops, and there's a store there that sold tennis shoes, and the name of the store was called Famous Footwear, right? Which would be like a Marti here. So we're walking by, I remember looking at some shoes that I really, really, really liked, and there were some Jordans. We're all familiar with Jordans, right? And so I looked at the shoes, and I was like, wow. And I remember them till today. They were blue, they were like suede, and they had a little yellow trim on them. And when I saw them, I was like, I was in love, because, you know, you see everybody at school wearing them, all the cool kids had them. So I asked my mom if I could go in and check out the shoes. So of course she's like, well, sure, go ahead. So I grabbed the shoes, and I remember that when I had them in my hand, there was a glow to me. There was a definite glow to me, and you could see it. It was very obvious. And I was like, wow. I was just amazed, because these were the shoes that everybody had, right, at school. If you wanted to be cool, you wore Jordans. So my mom's like, wow, it looks to me like you really like those shoes. And I said, absolutely, Mom. These are the Jordans, right? And she's like, well, why don't you try them on? So I did. And of course, as soon as I tried them on, I was like, I felt like I was flying. I felt like I was Jordan. And my mom was like, man, do they really mean that much to you? I said, Mom, you have no idea what this would do for me in school. She's like, all right, well, let's buy them. I was like, really? So she did. And I remember she put them on a credit card. We walked out the store. I don't even remember the movie. I just remember getting home, putting them on right away. I even put them on and wore them with different clothes just to see how I could match them. I did. And I threw on different pants and different shirts, and I was checking myself out. And then I heard, my mom's room was right next to mine. I heard my mom arguing. I should say my sister arguing with my mom. And I could hear they were saying something. I didn't know what I was, so I got a little closer. And then I remember, actually, my sister was kind of upset at my mom. She was upset at my mom, and she was upset because my mom bought me these $150 shoes from money that we probably shouldn't have spent on shoes. So right there, I was like, whoa, I had realized what my mom done for me. But then my mom started crying. And when my mom started crying, and I heard her cries, it was that moment that my frustration peaked. And I said, I gotta do something. Of course, I ran back into my room, and sure enough, I started crying. I started crying because I realized what my mom was doing for us as a family, always risking, always, never telling us necessarily that we didn't have enough money. She always tried her best to push us forward, to give us nice things, to do good things for us. And it was that moment that I realized that everything that my mom had ever told me wasn't necessarily true, and that maybe we didn't have the means that I thought we did. So I was very frustrated, and I went in my room and I cried. And that right there, that instant, I decided that I was gonna do something different. I said, I need to make something of myself. I need to change the situation for myself and for my mom. Paul was a very, very, very successful man. Very successful man. He's a multimillionaire. He's not just, materialistically speaking, but he's an amazing man. He's an amazing leader. So when I met him, I was like, whoa, because I didn't know any of that, right? That was not like my world. So being the very curious young man that I've always been, I remember asking him a ton of questions, and he used to take me with him to his real estate properties, and he'd show me how to collect the money and how you should invest the money and how to actually apply for a loan. And he taught me a little bit about business. And Paul was the first person to teach me about risk, which we're gonna talk about today. So anyways, I will say that the one thing I admire Paul for is that Paul never gave me $1. Right? Paul never gave me $1. He believed that I should work hard for it. But he was the first person, not just to teach me about risk, to teach me that I should educate myself. He says, Tony, tell me the last time your mother ever taught you about risk. Tell me the last time your mother ever taught you about opportunity. Now, the second set of people that I'm going to talk to you about right now, okay, these are the people who create opportunity for themselves. Okay, these are the people who live life on their terms, the way they envisioned it. Okay, these are the people who believe in themselves when nobody else did, and the people who create opportunity for themselves when there wasn't any. All because of this very same subject of fear. You see, the world's greatest leaders didn't look at fear as most of us do. When they think of fear, the only fear that they have is dying and looking at themselves as the person who they could have become, dying and looking at themselves at their fullest potential and realizing that they didn't because of their fear. Okay? I'm talking about fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of public humiliation, fear of the unknown, fear of not being good enough, and yes, fear of success. Okay, think about that for a second. Somebody said, well, no, I'm not afraid. What are you talking about? I want success. Why would I fear success? Well, again, remember, fear works in the subconscious mind. So we all want success, of course we do. Unfortunately, we won't all achieve it. Fear of responsibility. We say, oh man, you know what? I'm ready for more. I want to move up, man. I'm ready to close. I'm ready to be a sales manager. I'm ready to be a sales director. I'm ready to start my own business. But deep inside, there's a fear. There's a fear of the responsibility that it comes with, and that you might not be the right person for that. And because we have this fear of responsibility, subconsciously, your actions show the complete opposite, and they show that you actually don't want it. Yet you say that you do, and you tell everybody else that you do. But that fear of responsibility will never allow you guys to grow. How many of us here have personal projects we want to achieve? Raise your hand. Wow. Awesome. What's stopping you? Okay, is it the fear that if it doesn't succeed, people are going to mock you? Is it the fear that if it doesn't happen, they're going to ridicule you, that you're going to be humiliated? How many of us ourselves have stopped because we're afraid of what people are going to think? What your friends are going to post on Facebook if they found out it didn't work? If I don't move forward, what am I really losing? I don't know about you guys, but I'm not prepared to lose my dream. I'm not prepared to lose the opportunity to be able to provide for my family. I'm not ready to let go of the thing that means the most to me. And I'm not ready to quit. And reason number 2, I love it, a high tolerance of emotional pain. These people are willing to go through it because they have a high tolerance of emotional pain. A lot of us try to avoid the pain, again, like the plague. You feel a little bit of pain and then you stop. Name one person that you know who has massive success in their lives that didn't have to go through a ton of pain. So you got to be comfortable with pain. A little different, right, than what we were taught. So ask yourself this question. On a scale of 1 through 10, how high is your tolerance of emotional pain? And if your answer is 1, no, hopefully not 1. If your answer is 3, 4, 2, okay, you might cave in and you might quit. This is important that we understand because everyone who's ever faced or succeeded had to go through a ton of pain, so you got to start getting used to it. Who here has played golf before? Raise your hand. Okay. Who plays it regularly? Nice. All right. Would we agree that golf is pretty hard? A bit frustrating? Right? Probably very frustrating. I've had the chance currently to be the mental coach of a professional tour player by the name of Gerardo La Raza, and I've been working with him for about 1.5 years. And there's so many things, not just that I've learned about, the sport, but that I've learned about myself through the sport. I personally respect these players because they go all of their lives facing frustration year after year after year to hopefully one day become a pro. Year after year, frustration after frustration. Golf is the most frustrating sport I've ever played. And this is what I've learned. I'm gonna share with you guys a couple of things that I've learned while coaching this professional tour player. Number 1, I've learned that frustration is part of the sport. Kind of like in life, right? It's just frustrating. Why do a lot of people quit golf? Because they can't deal with the frustration. The greatest athletes are always purposely operating at the edges of their ability so they will screw up and fail. I didn't make this up, by the way. There's a book called The Talent Code. It talks about how professional athletes practice. And it talks about this concept I'm going to share with you today called deep practice. And it talks about how professional athletes are always purposely operating at the edges of their ability so they will screw up and fail. Isn't that funny? That's not what they taught me about failing. I learned I shouldn't fail, right? Well, guess what? The world's greatest athletes and some of the most successful people I've ever studied are all purposely putting themselves in a situation where they can actually fail. Because the only way we learn is through failure. So then I said, well, what if we just applied it to what we do? What if I apply this to sales? What if I purposely ask difficult questions to my customer? What if I purposely put them uncomfortable by asking certain questions I've never asked before? What would actually happen? What if I challenged myself every single day to doing something that gets me out of my comfort zone, that's going to make me think more, it's going to make me pay more attention, it's going to make me struggle? Yes, there's a chance I'll fail. Yes, there's a chance the client might not like my questions. Who cares? Over this last 5 years that I've studied a little bit of psychology of success, I think that the thing I can leave you guys with the most was that they all shared something in common, and that's that they were willing to risk. Right? Now, when you think about risk, what do you normally think about? And we talked about this a little bit earlier. Well, I'm going to tell you right now what risk means or has meant to some of the world's greatest leaders that I've got a chance to study. Because risk to them is doing nothing. Risk to them is staying in your comfort zone. Risk to them is not reaching your fullest potential. That's risky. Risk to them is not going after your dream and working for somebody else the rest of your life in something that you don't believe in and doing something that means absolutely nothing to you. That's risky. Being poor and not being able to provide for your family, that's risky. So you see, the way that they look at risk is completely different, completely the opposite as towards what we know it. Because doesn't it seem like we're moving too slow towards our goals? Doesn't it sometimes seem like we're working with the same tools that our parents and the generations behind us left us with, and we're not moving quick enough? Doesn't it feel like that sometimes? Well, I want to invite you here today to a more fearless approach. One that means you have to be bold. You have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to risk. You guys have been amazing. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.